Night Swim is a 2024 supernatural horror movie, written and directed by Bryce McGuire in his feature directorial debut, and is based on a 2014 short film of the same name by McGuire and Rod Blackhurst. It stars Wyatt Russell, Carrie Condon, Amelie Hoferall, and Gavin Warren. Forced into an early retirement by an illness, a former baseball player moves into a new house with his wife and 2 children, in hopes that the backyard swimming pool will be fun for the kids and provide physical therapy for himself. However, a dark secret from the home's past soon unleashes a malevolent force that drags the family into the depths of darkness.
Why aren't you saying anything?
Okay, so from the jump, don't waste your money on this. This is not a good movie. And what I'm about to say is basically a rant. I'm just gonna talk about it openly. I'm gonna keep the spoilers out of it for the most part. But it just really isn't a very good movie on many levels. But the first thing that really jumps to mind is my disappointment and frustration with Blumhouse. Because as much as I appreciate them bringing horror into Hollywood, bringing horror onto our big screens, it's been a huge boon in the horror genre for a while now. And I love that. I love how they just basically spend like $1 million or so and make a bunch of money back, but they're able to continually pump out horror movies. But over the last few years, it just feels like they're becoming more and more vanilla, more bland, and really just feel like they're made by AI. And this is one of the ones that feels the most that way to me. Everything feels paint by numbers. It's every trope you can imagine. They're just shoved in here. It feels like kind of what it is an interesting idea that made for a decent short that they tried to force into a full-length movie. And it's only an hour and a half, but it feels so long. It just drags on and on because it is so much of the same thing. Basically, you go into the pool, something happens, dark, presence, whatever happens. They're like, what's going on? But they don't see it, and then rinse, repeat. It just keeps happening. Like, these things happen that they're not quite sure what it is, and then they go about their lives, and they keep getting freaked out, and they go about their lives. And it just feels like there's no real meat on the bone here. And it's a real shame, because I honestly feel like there's a decent story here, that there's a decent idea, at least, that could be played with. And it's disappointing, because as someone who grew up with the swimming pool, I remember being around 10, 11, something like that, and getting a swimming pool. My family moved into the first and only nice house we ever really lived in, and it had a swimming pool, and we lived there for a couple years, and it was fantastic. And the way that the pool and living in the pool and just having fun in the pool, the way all that's presented, the way the family dynamic plays out, I thought was actually really well done. I enjoyed it. But it's the horror in this that just doesn't fit. It feels shoehorned in. It's not scary. I mean, not even slightly. And you're talking to someone who's desensitized. So a lot of times, I'm not even sure what is scary and what's not. But I can tell you for a fact, unless this is the first movie or you're under the age of 13, there is nothing at all scary about this movie. And don't get me started on the special effects and CGI. Holy shit, they're atrocious. I mean, literally, I was fighting to not laugh out loud because it's not at all meant to be funny. There's this one scene in particular that got me. It was the first time you kind of see the presence of this thing. You see this entity. And I won't go any deeper into that because I don't want to spoil anything. But you see this kind of entity thing for the first time. And it literally looks like shit with eyes. It is so horrible. I don't know who signed off on this. I can't imagine that anyone really paid attention to what they were putting out, because they've been promoting the hell out of this movie. I mean, how could they possibly think that this pile of shit was going to be successful? I mean, there are a few things here and there that are not that bad about this movie, but one of the things that's the worst is the way this creature entity thing looks. It just looks awful. The other thing that really, really bugged me about this movie was Wyatt Russell. And that really sucks because I'm a big fan of his. I really enjoy him in everything really I've seen him in. And it's not his acting, okay? It might look like it's his acting in this, but it really is the dialogue. It's what he's asked to do. He is just not meant to be this villainous kind of guy who basically gets kind of possessed, at a moment in the movie. And he just is not meant to portray this character. Like, the dad part, the happy, fun, go lucky ex-baseball player part, is not too bad. But even then, the dialogue, there is one scene after another where his dialogue is just so bad. Like, I can't understand people that write these movies lately. Have they never talked to another human being? People don't talk this way. There's this scene where he's talking to his kid and they're kind of working on putting this cover on the swimming pool. And he's just going on and on with one baseball cliche after another. Like, never give up, blah, blah. It's so bad. Like, no one talks to their kids this way. And I just don't get it. I don't know if these movies are being rushed out. I don't know if... I just don't get it. I understand that they cost almost nothing to make, so no matter what, they're going to make their money back. So I kind of get that, but it just feels like such a waste when Blumhouse puts no time or energy into this and just keeps plopping them out. And the only way they'll stop is if we call them out. If we basically stop going and supporting movies like this where there's no effort at all put into it. And like I said, it's a real shame because there are some quality things about it. The way it's shot, it actually looks really, really good. So if you see the trailer, you're like, hey, that looks competently shot. It is. It looks good. And then some of the acting around Wyatt Russell, the wife and the two kids, they do fantastic. I thought they did a great job. But then there's some other things that are just atrocious. Like, they try to put this one character in there for comedy purposes, and it just is a huge fail. Like, not funny at all. It's like this pool cleaner guy who basically says a few stupid lines and falls, and it's so dumb. And then later on in the movie, the most scary kind of scene, or one of the most scenes that's really kind of laying out this whole picture of what's going on, which I'm not going to spoil it, I actually do think the idea, like, of how this entity exists and what it represents and all that, I think that's actually really cool and could be done in a great way. But unfortunately, it's just not here. A lot of what really doesn't work for me in this, because you can have clunky dialogue and still give me some great visuals and some scary moments and things like that, and I'll be on board. But with this, the way things look like when they're trying to be scary is just so dumb and so played out. It's things we've seen over and over and over and over. And I'm not going to get into those because it would be too spoilery, but there's just, every kind of tropey kind of visual and things that you see in every single bottom of the barrel, Walmart PG-13 horror movie lately. It's like the same stuff, rinse, repeat. It's become this way where these companies know they can make money. They put a PG-13 horror movie out there, a bunch of kids flock to it, they go see this horror movie, they're not expecting a whole lot because they haven't seen a lot of horror, and so it's just fine. They get a little bit, jump scare, and they're happy, and so they just go about their life and pluck down their $15 or whatever to go see this movie. I get the model of it, but as someone who is so about independent horror and really want more people to see these quality, fantastic movies that get ignored every single year, this just drives me absolutely crazy. Because I feel like Jason Blum talks all the time about being a fan of horror and a fan of the genre and all this. But if you are, how can you put this stuff out? I'm not saying don't put these PG-13 horror movies out. When they're done okay, that's fine. Like Megan last year, even Five Nights at Freddy's. I'm not a big fan of it. I thought it wasn't scary. I didn't think it was that great, but it still was okay. It at least had a plot that kind of made sense. It had some creepy moments, and especially for fans of Five Nights at Freddy's, it was fine. But this is just so bad. Like, they try to pull at your heartstrings, but because the dialogue is so clunky, the family dynamic never really quite works, and so you just don't have any real feelings toward this family. You don't care really what happens to anybody. And if that's the case, then when something tragic happens or whatever, you're just like, okay, whatever. It's just, oh my God, this movie. It was just so maddening. It just frustrated me so bad to see another movie put in theaters. And I know it's January, and that's kind of where a lot of movies go to die. They're just kind of plopped out in January. But Blumhouse promoted the hell out of this. And it's also their first, official collab with Atomic Monster, James Wan's company. And you would think they would put something better than this out. I mean, James Wan especially, that dude knows talent. That guy can make some great stuff. And he signed off on this? Like, I just don't understand. I don't know what they saw that they thought would make this an okay thing to put in the theaters. If you want to make it straight to streaming on Prime like they do a lot of their other projects, or streaming on Hulu or whatever, that's one thing. I wouldn't be nearly as critical or frustrated with this. But when you put it in theaters and you're asking people to spend between $10 and $20 to see it, that's a crime. That is really not fair to the public, and also just gives horror a bad name and continues to just prolong this thought process in Hollywood, especially, that horror is just this cheesy, campy, nothing to respect genre. And that is so maddening when you see these performances every year, these movies every year that deserves more recognition, they deserve more people seeing them, they deserve more money behind promoting them and pushing them and all of that, and they get nothing because these movies are what get the money. These movies are the ones that you promote. I just don't understand it. I wish that they would take a little more time to put together some decent horror movies, at least the ones you're going to put into theaters. So I'm really excited about this year in horror. Unfortunately, this is not a good way to kick things off, but I did just put out a video, if you haven't seen it yet, of me talking about the 30 most anticipated horror movies that are coming this year. And this was on it. Unfortunately, it's a disappointment. It's not as good as I was hoping. I never expected it to be a game changer. I thought it would just be a fun little popcorn horror movie, but it's not even that. It really is one that you definitely should wait and stream, if not just skip altogether. It brings nothing new. There's really nothing of merit here. And the creature design things are just some of the worst, cheesy, low budget looking things you will see. And this is not a super low budget movie, okay? There is a decent cast, I'm telling you. It looks well shot. Like, it's not a bottom of the barrel kind of horror movie. But I wouldn't be surprised if at the very least this is one of my worst of the year. This might be my worst, who knows? Hopefully there's nothing this bad the rest of the year, but I know there will be. There's going to be a Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey sequel, so that'll probably take the cake. But either way, I appreciate you so much for checking this out. And if you enjoyed it, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and ding the little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel. And when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this every single week, I also want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys absolutely mean the world to me. And if you would like to help support this channel, there's a link down in the description for Patreon, or if you want to become a channel member and help support the channel that way, there's a button right down there that says join. And like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button, and remember, guys, horror can be fun! And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about the 30 most anticipated horror movies coming in 2024. And I'll see you guys next time!